Welcome back to Only Talk Sports. We talk sports every single day, or at least we try to. I'm your host, Jeffrey. Subscribe to the channel if you like sports content. Hit that notification bell so you never miss another video. Now, on Wednesday night in the SEC, it's not the Iron Bowl, but it's still the Auburn Tigers traveling on the road to the Alabama Crimson Tide. Who do I think is going to win this basketball game? Let's break it down. Now, Auburn, they've had a tough go of it this season. They are 19-10 and 9-7 in the SEC, so the record isn't too bad. But overall, they were a top 25 team at the beginning of the season that has struggled, but Bruce Pearl, he's still a really solid head coach. He's taken Auburn to a Final Four, and he's done a lot of great things with the Tigers program, but this year, they've had their ups and downs, and their resume really reflects that. And this season, they have some solid wins. They've beaten Arkansas this year in the SEC, and they have a win over Missouri as well, and they beat Memphis and Northwestern in the non-conference, but they've lost to Tennessee in the SEC, and they already lost to their rivals Alabama at home, and in their last game, they just got destroyed by Kentucky, and they lost by like 32 points. So Auburn's been up and down all year, but they're going to have to be a more consistent team if they want to have a really good end to their season. And Auburn's best player this year has been Johnny Broome, the Morehead State transfer. He's averaging 14.1 points per game and 8.6 rebounds per game. He's been the addition that Auburn needed when Walker Kessler and Jabari Smith went to the NBA draft last year, and he has played well, but he hasn't been what Walker Kessler and Jabari Smith had combined for Auburn. He's still been really solid, but Auburn has needed more in the front court this year, and Johnny Broome's doing everything he possibly can to provide that, but it still hasn't been enough for Auburn to reach the potential that a lot of Tiger fans want this year. Wendell Green Jr., he's averaging 13.8 points per game, 3.5 rebounds per game, 4.2 assists per game. He's a really short point guard that plays with a lot of fight, and he does provide a really nice spark for Auburn, but he is a player that's also really inconsistent. When his jump shot's not falling, then the Tigers really struggle, and he is a good passer, but he still is a bit inconsistent with his passing as well. And overall, Auburn kind of goes as he goes, and when he's playing well, Auburn's a great team, but when he's not playing well, Auburn really struggles. And Jalen Williams is averaging 11 points per game and 5 rebounds per game. He slides in right next to Johnny Broome in the front court for Auburn, and he's had a solid season, but again, Auburn's needed more out of their front court guys to replace Jabari Smith and Walker Kessler, and both Jalen Williams and Johnny Broome have done a solid job, but it hasn't been the production that they got last year. Allen Flanigan's averaging 9.4 points per game, 4.7 rebounds per game, and KD Johnson's averaging 8.2 points per game, 1.9 rebounds per game. Both players have had good seasons, but they haven't taken the step forward that a lot of Auburn fans thought that they would from last year. Both are very inconsistent players, but they do have their moments. And off the bench, Auburn has Chris Moore, Dylan Carwell, Zeb Jasper, and Johan Traore, but none of those players are averaging more than 4 points per game. But Auburn definitely needs more production from their bench if they're going to be able to score more points, because they have struggled on offense this year, and on average, they're only scoring 72.1 points per game, and on defense, they're giving up 65.9 points per game. Nothing shows that Auburn's been struggling more on offense than the fact that they only scored 43 points against Tennessee, and Tennessee is a solid defensive team, but Auburn's offense can fall asleep at times, and their defense, while solid, has not been able to bail out Auburn in enough games this year. So Auburn's definitely going to have to get more offensive production if they want to get a win at Alabama, and if they want to make a run in March. Now, on the Alabama side, they're 25-4 and 15-1 in the SEC this season, and Nate Oats, he's had a fantastic season coaching the Alabama Crimson Tide, and overall, Alabama's had a great year, but recently, there's been a cloud over the program with everything that's happened with the school shooting. Rest in peace to the person that was killed, and that's been tough for the Alabama Crimson Tide to navigate because they have a great team, but their play has been declining a bit since all that news broke out, so it's going to be really interesting to see how Alabama continues to play moving forward because they have had a great season overall. And their resume really reflects that in the fact they only have 4 losses. They have losses to Gonzaga and UConn in the non-conference, and they also lost at Oklahoma, which was their worst game of the season in the Big 12 SEC Challenge, and they lost at Tennessee, but they also have great wins over Auburn on the road already. They beat Kentucky, they have a win over number 1 Houston, and they beat North Carolina and Michigan State. So Alabama has a much better resume than Auburn, and they've been playing much better all season, but again, with everything going on with their program right now, Alabama's going to have to stay focused and continue to play at a high level. And Brandon Miller's probably the top freshman in the country. That is undeniable. He's averaging 19.7 points per game and 8 rebounds per game, and he's turned up his play to another level after all the stuff that's broken out with the campus shooting and his involvement in it. He's playing well, and he's not letting that get to him. And whatever happens to him amid all this stuff going on, he's still playing really well, and he's still going to be a top 5 pick in the NBA draft if everything goes well for Brandon Miller. But overall, he's playing at a fantastic level for Alabama, and he's been really fun to watch. Mark Sears is averaging 13.4 points per game, 3.5 rebounds per game, 2.8 assists per game. He's the transfer from Ohio, and he's been a huge addition for Nate Oats, and he's played well all season. He set up his teammates really well, and he's hit timely buckets. Noah Clowney's been the other really good freshman for Alabama. He's averaging 9.8 points per game and 8.2 rebounds per game. He could be a first-round draft pick. He plays really hard, and he's a fantastic rebounder, and he's a good low-post player. Jaden Bradley's averaging 7.5 points points per game, 2.7 rebounds per game, and 3.4 assists per game. He's the other player that's been linked to the shooting, but he's still playing at a solid level for Alabama. And Javon Quinterly's averaging 7.1 points per game and 3.6 assists per game. Javon Quinterly was a fantastic player last year for the Crimson Tide, but then he got hurt at the end of last season, and his level of play has dropped off this year, but he's still a solid spark plug off the bench for Alabama, and it's nice to see him back on the court. And Alabama is also getting solid contributions from Ryland Griffin, Namari Burnett, Charles Bediako, and Noah Gurley, and all those players average more points per game than the top bench player for Auburn, so that's why Alabama's been a great offensive team this year, and their points per game reflect that. They've been scoring 83.3 points per game, and on defense, they're only giving up 69.1 points per game. Overall, Alabama's just a great team on both sides of the ball. Their defense does slip up at times, as give up a lot of points to other teams, but when they're locked in on defense, they can be a great defensive team. And overall, on offense, they are fantastic, and if they can continue to score at a high level, they will be very tough to beat in March Madness. Now, who do I think is going to win the basketball version of the Iron Bowl? Now, Auburn, they've already lost Alabama at home, and I think that that's a really telling sign that Auburn's just not on the same level as Alabama. Now, obviously, anything can happen. That's why games are played. And when you have a rivalry game, you never know what's going to happen. Arizona State was able to get a big win at Arizona on a buzzer beater this past Saturday, so you never know. Auburn has the talent to get the job done. And even though Auburn did get blown out against Kentucky in their last game, you never know. They could come back around, and maybe that was a game that they were looking ahead to Alabama and be able to give the Crimson Tide a fight in this game. And Bruce Pearl is a fantastic coach, and a lot of people have forgotten about him this year because Auburn's not having as great of a season. But overall, he's still one of the best coaches in college basketball, and he has really solid players with Johnny Brew and Wendell Green leading the way. And if they both have great games and Auburn can get a lot of contributions from their supporting cast, then they could go on the road and get their win at their arch rival in Alabama. But Alabama's the more talented team, and even though they do have the clout hanging over the program right now, Brandon Miller's not letting that affect his play. It's going to come down to the other players for Alabama that help Brandon Miller out in this game. If Alabama can get good contributions from Noah Clowney and Mark Sears, then I think that Alabama will have a really good chance to win this game because Alabama will have way too much firepower on the offensive end that Auburn won't be able to stop. And even though Auburn is a better defensive team than Alabama, this game is going to be at Alabama, and that's going to be really tough for Auburn to go into that crowd and get the win. And Alabama has not been playing as well lately after everything that's broken out with the news of the campus shooting, but Alabama's still been finding ways to win, and Auburn's not playing their best basketball right now. I'm going to go with the Alabama Crimson Tide to beat the Auburn Tigers 78-69. I think Auburn can win this game. Again, it's a rivalry game, so you never know what's going to happen. Bruce Pearl, he has the ability as a head coach to get his team ready to get a win like this, and I think overall Auburn will play hard in this game to be able to get a win over their arch rivals, and they're going to be able to not let the crowd noise get to them too much and keep this a close game. And I think that Auburn's defense will be able to slow down Alabama's offense a good amount in this game, and I think that Auburn will be able to score on an Alabama defense that sometimes pick and chooses when they want to play hard on that side of the ball. But Alabama has Brandon Miller, and he's playing at a high level despite everything that's going on with the program right now, and I think that he's going to have a fantastic game. And even if Alabama's supporting cast doesn't play their best in this game, I think that Brandon Miller's just going to be too much. The freshman phenom's going to have a huge game, and I think this is going to be a rivalry game. It's really close, but Alabama's going to find a way to pull away at the end, and I'm going to go with the Alabama Crimson Tide to beat the Auburn Tigers 78-69 in this basketball rivalry game. Subscribe to the channel if you like sports content. Like this video down below. Comment down below whether you think Alabama or Auburn is going to win this game and why, and I will see you next time.